Another great example of integrating your shadow is Alice from the Bakugan Battle Brawler series. You see, Alice was the epitome of harmless and agreeable. You could confuse her for a NPC, a side character, had she not been introduced in the theme song. Therefore, it was more of a shock in the latter half of the series when you found out Masquerade, one of the main antagonists who would literally send people's Bakugan to hell. He was literally a genocidal monster who was egotistical, narcissistic, and had little regard for the lives of other brawlers. It was more of a shock to find out that that same character was actually Alice. Now, of course, because it's a show, they make it that Masquerade was an alternate persona of Alice that materializes through dark energy and a mask that she wears. That this is all a product of some failed experiment by her grandfather that causes her to be like this. However, you need to understand, Masquerade didn't come from nowhere. The dark energy merely provided a catalyst for Masquerade to come out in full force. Those emotions, those feelings of resentment, aggression, a proclivity for violence, those are all things that Alice already had. All the dark energy did was almost, well, for lack of better terms, allowed an excuse for her to release it. This idea is almost exemplified when you look at the type of person Masquerade is. You look at Masquerade, he's cool, confident, aggressive, cunning, manipulative, narcissistic. Masquerade can easily feel threatened. He's always competing, always wanting to dominate, and does not like the idea of him being weaker, lesser, or outclassed, as exemplified with his final battle against Dan, where he refused to lose and he just kept charging in to where he even miscalculated Dan's gate card. When you see that in regards to Alice, Alice is completely harmless. She's agreeable, she's kind, she's tender, she's very submissive, she's always in the back. In a way, you could say she's always being saved. She's not an active character that's involved, that's engaging with the conflict at hand. She's always a support character. While the show doesn't really show any signs of resentment, any signs of her feeling envious or anything, this is a bit of my own headcanon. But one can assume that a person who is extremely agreeable to that nature has to have a darkness. The brighter the light, the darker the shadow. So in comparison, Masquerade and Alice are completely different people. They are literally different people. However, they're not. Masquerade is just as much Alice as Alice is. The dark energy did not create this personality, this negative, this disagreeable personality from nothing. It's all things that were already within Alice as a character, you know? So then once again in the latter half of the series, when the main protagonists travel to Vestroia to go and directly engage with the conflict, no longer are they just sitting and waiting for the danger to come. The call to adventure has already came, and they have taken it. They're already abandoning their kingdom, their Eden, and they're going out and actually engaging with the conflict at hand. And Alice is left behind because at this point it's already been revealed that she is Masquerade. She feels guilty, and who wouldn't? You find out that every time you go to bed, you turn into a genocidal maniac. Oh man, God only knows the kinds of emotions she's feeling. She's probably questioning where exactly Masquerade came from. And the scariest part will be when she realizes that it was all within her. That Masquerade wasn't a magical spirit or anything. No, the dark energy merely facilitated her ability, her proclivity for violence and mayhem. But it's not all at a loss though. No. She sees her friends engaging directly with the conflict, leaving order straight into the chaos. She has a moment to herself where she also feels that same call to go into the chaos along with them and to fight for something. Even if the chances of them succeeding is next to zero, still going in, still engaging into the unknown rather than staying in the comforts of a falling kingdom. She had two options. You either accept the call to adventure, engage with the unknown, fight adversity, slay the dragon, get the pot of gold, or stay in the kingdom and die. And this part's so cool. I love it so much. In this moment, when she decides to engage with the part of the unknown, she also decides to engage with the part of herself that she doesn't know. The part of herself that is capable of materializing a being such as Masquerade. Thus, she jumps into the vortex, into the portal, and she summons Masquerade. She looks within, calls to Masquerade to give her strength. While now she understands that Masquerade is her, she understands Masquerade is her. If misguided and uncontrolled, Masquerade is just an agent of chaos causing mayhem, destruction, a genocidal monster. But when Alice learns to accept that, she sent lots of, as Masquerade, she sent a lot of Bakugan into the Doom Dimension, and those Bakugan aren't coming back. She brought a lot of grief and trauma to those little kids playing Bakugan. And God only knows how much trauma you get from 11-year-olds playing with biblical level creatures. When she jumps into the vortex, she calls to Masquerade to give her strength. And thus, Masquerade materializes, and she goes and helps Dan. And when Dan sees her, he sees Masquerade. He's in shock. His defenses go up. And rightfully so. I mean, you're already dealing with these two Bakugan and their legions of lesser Bakugan attacking you. And oh, great, cool. The genocidal monster is here. Just what I needed. However, Masquerade reveals himself to not be Masquerade per se, but to have a higher level of consciousness. But reveals himself to have a higher level of consciousness. Because previously, Masquerade was the subconscious of Alice. Therefore, when Alice wasn't conscious as a person, the subconscious, which was Masquerade, would come in control. And Masquerade was well aware of Alice's existence. And because of that, Masquerade did everything without any regard to what Alice wanted. Because while Alice wanted to be agreeable, to promote harmony, and to not engage in much conflict, Masquerade said to hell with that. Because that's what the shadow does. The shadow is literally another person within you. And when you don't integrate it properly, that shadow can overtake you. When you build up resentment, when you build up guilt, fear, all those nasty emotions, if you don't learn to accept those emotions and learn to actually healthily manage it and accept that it's a part of you, then those emotions materialize into your shadow, and it's like almost a completely different person from you. That's why when you hear about people's shadows appearing, you hear people say things like, they've never acted like this. This is crazy. This is unlike him. Exactly, because it's not them. Oh, but it is. Therefore, when Masquerade appears before Dan, he reveals himself to have a higher order of consciousness. Because now it's not the subconscious Masquerade, it's the conscious Masquerade with the same memories, the same ideals as Alice. However, now she's integrated Masquerade. Now she's accepted the fact that she is Masquerade. And it's so cool. Because while she understood that Masquerade did some horrible things, she was able to realize that Masquerade, he's cunning, he's intelligent, he's aggressive. All those things that she saw, that we see as negative emotions, well, now when repurposed into this constructive, combative situation, when she's actually engaging with adversity, it becomes the most useful thing ever. Because if Alice had just been here as she was, Alice would be essentially completely useless. But because she accepted Masquerade and even said, you're a sick bastard, but my God, can you fight? Aren't you able to inflict fear in your opponents? I need that. To hell with this agreeableness. I need someone who's scary, who's angry, and who can get things done. Therefore, she integrates Masquerade. And in this final battle, it shows a disciplined Masquerade who's not just a bloodthirsty genocidal monster, but actually a well thought out, compassionate ruler, a ruler of their own mind, a person who's showing compassion and kindness and understanding while also acknowledging that they are perfectly capable of wrath, perfectly capable of mayhem and destruction. This is also further exemplified in the new Vestroya series, where Alice must engage in conflict again, and she uses her Hydronoid Bakugan against an opponent, and she tells the opponent, "Don't you know I used to be Masquerade?" Because Masquerade is pretty much the boogeyman in the Bakugan world. If you mention his name, it sends shivers down the spines of these children. I mean, what do you expect? You hear how people mention Stalin and Hitler, and people automatically flare up, their hair stand on their neck. So imagine that, but Masquerade. And in this battle, while Masquerade does not appear, Alice is completely integrated. She's not afraid. She showed restraint at first because that's her nature. She's agreeable, she's compassionate, and she's mostly harmless. However, as soon as the heat starts turning up, she doesn't back down. She doubles down, and she says, "Okay, if you want to play dirty, I'll play. If you want to play dirty, I'll engage you like an honest adversary, and I will bring in my capability of wrath." And while Masquerade doesn't materialize, they do show a visualization of Masquerade being a transparent being within her, showing that Alice is no longer Alice in Masquerade. Alice is Alice. But everything that made Masquerade was originally a part of herself, but now upon accepting those things, Alice has now become truly who she's meant to be, a compassionate and kind woman who's also a genocidal monster with a proclivity for violence. Of course, she loses this battle, which is really a testament to poor writing. However, the point still stands. She did so much better as a character when she accepted those dark traits of hers and became who she was always meant to be. And you know, when you actually look into Masquerade, it's amazing how the writers really made him the opposite of Alice in every way. I mean, especially the fact that Masquerade is a male. I mean, of course, no one would assume Alice, the female, was the male Masquerade. However, when the mask dropped, it was a shock to a child as myself. But they even showed that as Masquerade as a male, which just by design, males have a higher tendency to be aggressive and disagreeable. And females, and I'm talking about the classification, I'm not saying that's how I talk about women, but females are more likely to be calm and agreeable and to not directly engage with conflict. They engage with conflict in a more of a societal level, in a more of a psychological level. But males, oh man, they just bang their heads together all the time. So for Masquerade to literally be male shows off how much of Alice Masquerade truly represents, because it's all the traits that she doesn't have. But I mean, she does, but she never shows, all as a singular person. So it's absolutely genius, Alice, as a character.
What are you gonna do? The odds are stacked against you. Back against the wall.